Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of TNTT, Truth Not Trash with Tim. And we're continuing on with our special on the Constitution. We're going to look at, well, this is episode 5, so we're well into it. However, we're still in the first article. Isn't that crazy? I told you the first article was the longest article. So today, we're going to learn about Article 1, Section 7, and Section 8. Section 7 is the legislative process. Section 8 is powers of Congress. Now, this is a really cool section. I mean, they're all cool sections, in my opinion. It's all stuff we need to know about. But what we're seeing fold out in front of us just in the last week or so with the Omnibus Bill and the COVID relief package, and I got my own opinions on them. I'm going to try to keep them to myself, but I got my own opinions on those things. But what we're seeing with those bills being wrangled back and forth between the House and the Senate, and then between the Congress and the White House, and the White House back to Congress, and then Congress trying to override a veto. Man, all this stuff is really cool stuff, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So once again, this is our special on the Constitution. This is episode 5, and we're going to talk about Article 1, Section 7 and 8 for a quick recap. Now, you know me. I like to start off with like a mood. I like to start off in the mood. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to play a quick little video. Hopefully that will get us in the mood and it'll be fun. Give me a second to get this set up. Once again, like I've said before, I'm not a pro at this stuff, but I sure do try. So here we go. Enjoy.
As your body grows bigger,
Your mind must flower,
it's great to learn.
'cause knowledge is power.
It's Schoolhouse Rocky, the chip off the block of your favorite schoolhouse rock. I'm just a bill.
Whew, you sure gotta climb a lot of steps to get to this Capitol building here in Washington. Well, I wonder who that sad little scrap of paper is.
I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee. But I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
Gee, Bill, you certainly have a lot of patience and courage.
Well, I got this far. When I started, I wasn't even a bill. I was just an idea. Some folks back home decided they wanted a law passed, so they called their local congressman, and he said, "You're right, there ought to be a law." Then he sat down and wrote me out and introduced me to Congress, and I became a bill. And I'll remain a bill until they decide to make me a law. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I got as far as Capitol Hill. Well, now I'm stuck in committee, and I'll sit here and wait while a few key congressmen discuss and debate whether they should let me be a law. I hope and pray that they will. But today I am still just a bill.
Listen to those congressmen arguing. Is all that discussion and debate about you?
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones. Most bills never even get this far. I hope they decide to report on me favorably, otherwise I may die.
Die?
Yeah, die in committee. Oh, but it looks like I'm going to live. Now I go to the House of Representatives and they vote on me.
If they vote yes, what happens?
Then I go to the Senate and the whole thing starts all over again.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And if they vote for me on Capitol Hill, well, then I'm off to the White House where I'll wait in a line with a lot of other bills for the president to sign. And if he signs me, then I'll be a law. How I hope and pray that he will. But today I am still just a bill.
You mean even if the whole Congress says you should be a law, the president can still say no?
Yes, that's called a veto. If the president vetoes me, I have to go back to Congress and they vote on me again, and by that time you're so
By
old.
that time, it's very unlikely that you become a law. It's not easy to become a law, is it?
No, but how I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
He signed you, Bill. Now you're a law.
Oh, yes.
Now that's pretty cool, if I do say so myself. I mean, I just really enjoy that kind of stuff. And it's the kind of stuff that we saw when we were young. Remember? On Saturday mornings. So let's continue on with this. Pretty motivating, though. And it really explains it pretty well and puts it in terms that the kids can understand even. And that's when we need to be teaching them, is when they're young, getting them started on this stuff. Now, with that said, back when this was put in place, and our founding fathers never meant for us to have these big omnibus bills and these all-inclusive 5 to 12,000 page bills with things that don't mean anything to the original purpose of the bill. They're just you scratch my back, I scratch yours. One congressman tells to another congressman, hey, if you give me $10 million for my pet project creek back home, I'll give you $10 million for your pet project clinic back home, and we'll both vote yes. So like this defense bill, once again, I'm going to keep my opinions out of it, but there's so much stuff in there that's totally irrelevant to the defense of our nation. And that's not opinion, that's just fact. But what they do is they attach it to a defense bill because no congressmen or senators out there want to be known as the guy who voted against defense, right? Against the single largest thing that our government was supposed to do for us, which is defend us and maintain the peace. So they know that nobody is going to vote against that. So they attach all the garbage they can possibly get into these bills and get their garbage passed by naming the bill something catchy and something that nobody could vote against and have the media paint a good picture of them. So let's get into the Constitution. I'm going to pull it up real quick for us to follow along. Let's see, where is it? There it is. And I am going to, the browser can't access your screen. Let's try this again. And I know exactly why. There we go. The Constitution. So we are on, still in section 1. And we are going to scroll down here to Powers and Duties of Congress, section 5. Okay, you guys get to see the glare on my glasses again as I put these on to read. I could probably read it off the screen, but here we go. And I think what we'll do is we'll break it into 4 different sections. No, 3 different sections. So we'll go into legislative. I didn't stop at the right place. There we go. So we'll start with this section here. I'll highlight this. And it says, all bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives, but the Senate may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills. Okay, real quick. All this is saying is that the budgeting starts in the House of Representatives. It doesn't start in the Senate. Doesn't mean that the Senate can't add to it, remove from it, give advice, help out, and then they definitely have to agree with it before it gets sent on to the White House. So that's all that says. Real easy paragraph. Okay, let's move on. And we are going to go all the way to here. All right. Every bill which shall have passed the House of Representatives and the Senate shall, before it became a law, be presented to the President of the United States. If he approve, he shall sign it. But if not, he shall return it with his objections to that House in which it shall have originated, who shall enter the objections at large on their journal and proceed to reconsider it. If after such reconsideration, 2/3 of that House shall agree to pass the bill, it shall be sent, together with the objections to the other house, by which it shall likewise be reconsidered, and if approved by 2/3 of that house, it shall become a law. But in all such cases, the votes of both houses shall be determined by yeas and nays, and the names of the persons voting for and against the bill shall be entered on the journal of each house respectively. If any bill shall not be returned by the president within 10 days, Sundays excepted, after it shall have been presented to him, the same shall be a law, in like manner as if he had signed it, unless the Congress by their adjournment prevent its return, in which case it shall not be a law. Okay, a little bit there to unpack. So let's go right to the very beginning. Every bill which shall have passed the House of Representatives and the Senate shall before it become a law be presented to the President of the United States. Okay, so we know that, right? And we saw that in our little cartoon. So the bill goes in, it's approved by the House or the Senate, and then it goes to the other side, the House or the Senate, whichever one is left. And if they both approve it by a majority vote, it goes on to the president. Now, the president can sign it, or he can do what they call veto it, which means not sign it, disagree with the bill, and send it back. So if he approves and signs it, it's a law. Pretty simple, right? But if he doesn't approve and doesn't sign it and sends it back with objections and a reason why he doesn't approve of it, he sends it back to the House that originated it. So if it originated in the House of Representatives, he sends it there. If it originated in the Senate, he sends it there. Either way, it can be reconsidered or it just drops dead. And that's up to the branch that started it. Not the branch, but the House that started it. Which side of the House? So let's say the Omnibus Bill gets vetoed. It goes back to Congress. Congress has a chance to reconsider that bill, maybe make changes based on what the president recommended, or it goes on to talk about a 2/3 override, veto override. So like in the case of the Omnibus Bill and the COVID bill, right? So President Trump vetoed the overall bill. It went back to Congress, and Congress was able to get, or not Congress, but the House of Representatives, we're still waiting on the Senate, was able to get more than 2/3 of the House of Representatives to say, no, we like it the way it is. We're going to continue to fund all this garbage, even though it has nothing to do with defense. Oh, there I go again with opinion. Sorry about that. And now we're going to send it to the Senate. And now the Senate has to reconsider that as well. So if the Senate can get 2/3, they can override the president's veto, and this becomes a law. If not, it dies. Now, on the other hand, they could fix it, amend it, and then reapprove it as an original bill again, or an amended bill with just a majority, and send it back to the White House for another try. So there's lots of things to do there. It also goes on to say if the president doesn't sign it within a certain period of time, that it becomes a bill automatically under certain circumstances. Pretty self-explanatory there. Okay, let's continue on. Remember, I said this was pretty relevant to what's going on today because we have a couple of ginormous bills out there that are questionable at best, and the wrangling is going on. Like I said, so they approved it in the House, they approved it in the Senate, they sent it to the president vetoed it, sent it back to the Congress. The Congress now has reapproved it with over 2/3 of the vote. So now they send it to the Senate. The Senate is currently debating that. We'll see if they get 2/3 of the vote. If they don't get 2/3 of the Senate to vote for it, it just dies. It goes away. If they do, then it becomes law. All right. Every order, this is the last paragraph, every order, resolution, or vote to which the concurrence of the Senate and House of Representatives may be necessary, except on a question of adjournment, which we all know what that means, of stopping the session, shall be presented to the President of the United States, and before the same shall take effect, shall be approved by him, or being disapproved by him, shall be repassed by 2/3 of the Senate and the House of Representatives, according to the rules and limitations prescribed in the case of a bill. So that's what we just covered. So pretty cool stuff. And, you know, it's kind of an amazing thing how the Founding Fathers were able to fit such extensive rules on how this happens in such a small little section, such a small little few paragraphs, but they dictate the entire way our Congress and Senate and executive branch are supposed to pass a bill and pass a law. Unfortunately, we've diluted the waters over the years. And there's no reason to have a 5,000-page bill on anything. So once again, that's the opinion. Okay, so let's move on. We are going to read Powers of Congress. Now this, it seems like a long section, but it's really a bunch of, let me get back to it. It's really a bunch of bullet points on what the Congress can do, Senate and House of Representatives. So it says, the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excise, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. We'll stay there for a second. So the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes. It is what it is. You know, the old adage goes, there's only two for sures in life, and that's death and taxes. And so there it is. The Congress is responsible for putting those in place and collecting those. And that includes imposts and excises, excise tax on things that are bought and sold, to pay the debts and provide the common defense and general welfare. Once again, you know, pay the debts and provide for the common welfare and defense. Pretty simple things for our federal government to be doing, and yet they got their fingers in everything. Okay, let's continue on. So section 1, those are my grandkids out there in the hallway, so bear with me on this. Not a lot I can do about it. I wish I could pause the recording and go out there and yell at them, but that's fine. All right, so continuing on. To borrow money on the credit of the United States. These are the things that Congress can do. To regulate commerce with foreign nations among the several states and with the Indian tribes. Let's go back to borrow money on the credit of the United States. So Congress has to approve anytime we go into debt. Now, we've been in a perpetual state of debt for 50 or 60 years now. Ever since World War II, actually. I think we haven't been out of debt since then. However, to extend that debt, they put limits on it. We can only go so far in debt, but to extend that debt, it has to go back through Congress. And well, it just seems like they always extend it, doesn't it? To regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. So basically, the Indian tribes were considered another nation in foreign nations, and then the several states. So basically, it's saying that the Congress is responsible for creating the regulations to allow that commerce to happen without problem. To establish a uniform rule of naturalization and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States. That's kind of weird how they put those two together. Not really sure why they did that, but it basically says that the federal government takes care of immigration, naturalization, and uniform laws of the subject of bankruptcies. So they have to make sure that the bankruptcy laws are the same across all the states. To coin money, regulate the value thereof and of foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. I totally see how all those fit together. But so yeah, so the Congress, the federal government, was originally tasked with the coining of money and the regulation of the funds and how we were going to trade with other nations as far as value, and then fix the standards of weight and measure, which is, you know, inches, pounds, or kilos and millimeters, or whatever you want to use. We use the standard system here, not the metric system. I know that there's been attempts to convert over to that over the years, but to coin and regulate the value thereof of foreign coin. Man, so when we gave that up back in, I think it was 1913 or so, that was really the beginning of the perpetual debt. Whole nother subject. We'll talk about that in another video. All right. To provide for the punishment of counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the United States. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Can't be counterfeiting. To establish post offices and post roads. That was really, really important back in the colonial days, right? Because they had the horse riders, and they wanted to have known paths. And it's still important today, obviously, but it's not the deal that it was. To promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their prospective writings and discoveries. Okay, so nowhere in here does it say that we are going to pay artists and scientists to be artists and scientists. What it says here is that we're going to allow them to have patents and trademarks. So whatever they do come up with, whatever they do design and develop and become responsible for, whatever is theirs, at least for a certain period of time. So this talks about copyrights and trademarks. It doesn't say that we're supposed to go fund the Kennedy Center for the Arts, or that we're supposed to go fund some university science department. It doesn't say that. All right. To constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. So the Congress can, and we've seen this, right? So they spent 4 years trying to find dirt on President Trump and to get rid of President Trump. So investigation after investigation after investigation. That's what they're talking about here. So Congress, House of Representatives, and the Senate both have their own powers of tribunals that are inferior to the Supreme Court. To define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the law of nations. Now, the first one, define and punish piracies and felonies committed on high seas. You can see where that came from back then. There was a lot of that going on. And there's still some today. And that is actually one of the prime reasons why we have the Navy that we have, is to allow that to allow them to go out there and exercise our will. And then offenses against other nations and offenses against the law of nations. So get together with other nations and make decisions on whether or not what we're doing as a group is good for the group of nations. Not necessarily the United Nations, though, right? There was none of that back then. And we were probably better off without it, honestly. Oh, there's my opinion again. To declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. Once again, this gives Congress the sole right to declare war, right? And to declare peace, to give letters of reprisal and marque, and make rules concerning prisoners and capture. So this was given to Congress. This is what Congress is supposed to do. And Congress has not officially given up that right to the executive branch, but they sure have reduced their ability to exercise their requirement to be the group that does that. I do believe that the president has to have the ability to defend the nation in the here and now and to take action in the here and now, but not to necessarily declare war. And wow, kind of wild how we haven't had any declared wars other than the war on terror, which is pretty darn vague. Once again, we can talk about that somewhere down the road. I participated in the Cold War and the war on terror and the first Gulf War and multiple other theaters around the world over the last 30 years. So I definitely got some opinions and insight on that. All right, let's keep on going. To raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. So basically what it's saying is that when they appropriate funds to raise the armies, to maintain the defense, that appropriation is only good for 2 years. Now, I think what we do now is yearly, and we've done that for 30 some odd years now, and it's always passed. And every time it's full of more and more garbage that has nothing to do with defense, hence the 5,000 some odd pages, if not 6,000 pages. But that's where that comes from. To provide and maintain a Navy, very important, very important. The Navy is the outreach around the world for any nation, but especially the United States of America. That's one of the reasons why we are considered one of the strongest military nations in the world, is because the reach we have. All right, to make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces. Once again, we're talking about the military, right? So they have to make the rules to help the military. Of course, they delegated a lot of that out to the Department of Defense, which used to be the Department of War back when we used to win wars, to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union and suppress insurrection and repel invasion. That's something to think about today, right? To provide for calling forth the militia. Now, we got to realize that the militia isn't necessarily just the National Guard. When this was put together, it was a group of farmers that all got together and talked about how they were going to support their country. It wasn't an actual trained force like it is today. And so to go out and call these groups militias and say that that's a bad thing, well, once again, my opinion is that we've gone astray. All right, so execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrection. Yeah, it's something that we might be thinking about right now, huh? Because there seems to me like there's quite a bit of insurrection going on. I have to be careful with that. I don't think that we're at that point now, but it's definitely at the precipice of saying, hey, wait a minute, government, when are you going to stand up and get rid of these idiots in Portland that think they can just burn stuff down? If they open up a Chaz zone in Seattle, as soon as they say that they're citizens of Chaz, guess what? They're no longer citizens of the United States, and they don't get that citizenship back. And where do you deport them to? Well, the closest federal prison, in my opinion. And that's being nice. Okay, sorry about that. But anyway, so laws of the Union, suppress insurrection and repel invasion. Okay, to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. So Congress can say, this is how we want it organized. This is, in our case, the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, and this is what we want to have happen. But the states that are putting forth these militias, that are putting these groups of people together to help support whatever the problem is, the insurrection, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, whatever that might be, they're responsible for the actual training, and they are responsible for actually appointing the officers in charge of those different militias. So Congress doesn't do it specifically on the militia side, National Guard, things of that nature. Now, on the regular active duty military, United States Navy, Army, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, different story. Okay, like I said, this goes on and on and on. So, to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district, not exceeding 10 miles square, as may by secession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of the government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be, for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. Once again, this talks about the capital, so Washington, D.C. in this case, District of Columbia, and it talks about military bases, United States federal military bases. And so it says that Congress is to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district. So why have they allowed the infiltration of lesser government in the District of Columbia, state of Washington, or not state of Washington, Washington, D.C., because it's really gotten out of hand there. So Congress was supposed to be in charge of the District of Columbia, the seat capital, not a mayor and a city council and a bunch of people who, boy, they just don't seem to know what they're doing if you go there and hang out for a while. All right. Once again, I digress. And to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by the Constitution and the government of the United States, or in any department or office thereof. So this is what we call the catch-22, right? So this is the, hey, wait a minute, if we didn't actually talk about it in here, but you think it needs to happen, boy, go ahead and give it a shot. Probably one of the sections of the Constitution that, in my opinion, could have been written better, but it gives a pretty broad authority to Congress. And it's kind of unfortunate. Now, fortunately, just underneath that, it has powers denied Congress. And that's what we're going to talk about next. We're going to talk about in the next video, I should say. But we're going to talk about powers denied Congress, and then we're going to talk about powers denied to the states. So basically, it's going to talk about states' rights. It's going to talk about what the Congress can and can't do. But what we need to remember all the time throughout all these videos is that the Constitution is there to limit the government's ability to prevent the people from living their lives, right? Remember what the preamble says: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, all that kind of good stuff. I'm probably confusing the preamble with the Declaration of Independence, which I was going to talk about at the beginning tonight. But here we are. In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common events, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. So that's what the Constitution was for. It wasn't for the government to gain ultimate control over everybody and everything and dictate every aspect of our lives. It was meant for us to be able to dictate what the government can and can't do. So I want to articulate that a little bit better. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to write some stuff down, and in the next episode, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so that's what I got for you. Once again, this is TNTT, Truth, Not Trash with Tim. I'm trying as hard as I can. I hope you like what I'm talking about. I hope it at least gets you thinking and gets you looking and gets you learning, because that's what it's doing for me. By me doing this, I'm learning more than I would if I just sat down and read it. If you like what I'm doing, click the subscribe button, share it with your friends, get it out there to other folks. Let's get this thing out there viral, and I'll continue to do these things on into the future. All right. God bless you. God bless America. And you guys have a great evening out there. Good night.